Hello, welcome to Challenge to Build. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I am going to build a temporary paint booth out of a canopy, an air mover, some filters, a little bit of plastic, and some masking tape. So we're gonna call this like a budget paint booth. Now it is gonna be relatively small, so this is gonna be designed more so for parts painting, like a bumper or a hood. For me specifically, I'm going to finally get around to painting the 2500 HD hood for my wife's Suburban. So stay tuned and let's challenge the build. The first step, you could probably open a roll of plastic and start setting it up on the plastic. I am just gonna opt for the concrete floor. And then before I go to paint, I'm gonna just wet down the floor prior to painting. This canopy I bought when Kmart was going out of business. It was not a blue light special. For those of you who remember Kmart and blue light specials, this canopy is a Z shade, and this is actually a really big one. This is a 12 by 14. And then depending on how big your canopy is will ultimately determine how big your paint booth will be. I think when Kmart was going out of business, I bought me and my parents one of these. They have the smaller one. Generally, they're like 10 by 10 or 12 by 12. I scooped this up for like 60 bucks. This is obviously the main structure of the paint booth. So your canopy price will kind of determine how much money you will have invested in your temporary paint booth. But I feel as though this is something that a lot of people will already have. The next step for me is I'm going to get my plastic and some masking tape and start putting the walls up, and then we'll get involved in where I'm going to put the door, how I'm going to make the door, and then setting up the ventilation using the air mover. Now ultimately, with running the plastic around the perimeter of the canopy, I don't believe there's really any right or wrong way to do this. The plastic I'm using is the lighter cling cover by Easy Mask. There will be a link in the description if you choose to look at it. And it's more like an easy sheet. It's the static cling, so sometimes it's a pain in the butt to work with. But as you can see, I am working pretty diligently, building the perimeter walls, making sure to tape them to the floor. The tighter you can make the plastic, ultimately, the better off you will be in this temporary kind of structure, because once we add the ventilation, you are not going to want the walls to kind of move in and out with the air movement. So definitely take your time in making sure that the plastic is tight. Overall, what you're watching in 2 minutes, it took me a little over an hour to do, and I probably could have got it done quicker had I had a little bit of help, but it's quite all right. And I tie the plastic up to the crossbars and then fold the canopy over top of it, creating a nice tight seal. And you can see I'm running the tape along the canvas to the easy sheet right there. Now, also, the entry door is going to be something that you will have to come up with your own methods for this. You can use either like the roll-up method with the plastic. So this way here you can get the part in and out. You can see the hood is already in there. Once I get this locked in, we are going to start talking about the method for the door that I choose. So finishing up right here, and now we'll talk about the door that I choose to build. You have a couple different options, I guess, for this. You could ultimately kind of like lock in your exhaust or intake filters along the side as you're putting them in. This way here, you can utilize the front as you like your roll up and roll down. So this way here, you can get the parts in and out. Obviously, I have the hood already in there, so that's really not going to be a problem. So what I am going to decide to do is I'm going to make my entry door, my man door, entry door, to get in and out of HVAC, home, filters. So I stopped at Home Depot, picked up 3 20 by 25 filters, and what I am going to do is, without getting them too dirty, I'm going to tape them together. This video actually, and this whole temporary paint booth thing, has been something that I've been wanting to try to do for a while now. If you haven't noticed, I don't know if you noticed or not, the hood, I already painted the hood once, and I tried to paint it just in my garage one night, and because I painted it at night in my garage, the bugs were horrendous, and I ended up trashing out the hood, and I need to repaint it. So I probably should have just did this the first time around, so I wouldn't have wasted all of my time and some of my materials. But, you know, if at first you don't succeed, try again. So that's what led me to this. And now I am trying to build my own temporary paint booth, and I feel like I will be successful this time. And I get to make a video about it. So after connecting 3 of these, you should start to see what resembles a door. There is airflow arrows on these filters, so you're going to want to make sure that the airflow is going in the direction of the arrows, which is through the pleats, and then the backside has reinforcements on it. You saw me taping it along the floor. So this side I ran cross pieces of tape, taped it down to the floor really solid. Now I'm going to do the same at the top, using the door as my template. Let's do that. It will be a great success or an epic failure, and we will witness it together. All right. Now to install the door, we're going to use the masking tape as our hinge, and with any luck it will at least open and close sort of easy, I guess. You know, all those building shows I used to watch over the years. Make Jojo Liebler and Norm Abram proud, you know? Oh yeah. Now we're really overkilling it. Ah, beautiful. There we go. All right. Nicely done. This right here, exhaust fan, I recycled this from an old HVAC squirrel cage, and I think this was like my 2nd or 3rd YouTube video ever. And I will have a link in the description for this as well, showing how I made this, but this is about 4 years old and has lots and lots of runtime on it. And this is the first time that I'm going to use it as an exhaust fan for like a paint booth. You need to keep in mind that this is not an explosion-proof fan or rated to do these things, but that's why I'm going to have the filters around it to protect the motor. Now, as far as filters, I just opted for the cheap fiberglass stranded ones because I want a very large amount of airflow to flow through these. And the only thing that I want really filtered is the overspray particulate to be able to latch onto this. So these will work just fine. All right, so I'm going to interrupt my video here for just a second because obviously things look a little bit different than what you are watching with how I am building the exhaust fan filter assembly inside the booth. I posted a video on TikTok and got a little bit of feedback from it. And I am going to kind of talk about those things here in just a few minutes, but I will show you how I finished setting up the booth, and then we'll come back to talk about what is happening back here and why I am making some changes. A couple more pieces of tape and the paint booth will be complete. All right, so after a couple hours, 5 total rolls of masking tape, 3 intake filters, and then 4 exhaust filters for the fan. I have my fog machine set up here. I have not plugged it in, I promise. And what I'm going to do is I have the air mover plug here. I'm going to plug it in, which I have it on the low setting with how I have it designed. So it will start moving some air, and then I am going to hit the button for the fog machine to see if we can see it moving through the paint booth. I have another camera set up inside, so I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen. So here we go. Whoa! I'm going to need to add some more, I think, intake filters. I don't think I have enough intake filters, and that is on the low setting too. As long as it doesn't rip. Here goes nothing. Let's see what it looks like in there. I think I'm going to have to make some improvements over here. I've got quite a suction, which isn't a bad thing, but I need to balance it out more. So I think I will probably have to add just a couple more intake filters to kind of alleviate some of the pressure, because I don't have a lower speed for the fan. So a couple days have passed since building and filming the initial part of this paint booth process, and I still haven't painted my hood. I still haven't even used the paint booth. And with posting a couple of videos on TikTok, actually, I started getting a little bit of feedback from different supporters and followers of mine, and that is one aspect that I really actually enjoy in the posting of content online, is the interaction between like-minded people that like doing these sort of things. And a couple of the comments that I received were like this one here, and also this one here. And these comments actually already supported something that I already knew and actually mentioned in the video, if you have been watching and paying attention, and that was the exhaust fan. Whether you were using an exhaust fan such as I was, like an air mover style, or even as simple as using a box fan, you do run the risk of it being a hazard because of the electrical current moving through the motor. And as it's drawing the overspray in, the overspray is potentially flammable. So you do run a risk of potentially creating a fire. And this is something that I personally do not want to do. And I did know this from previous experiences in building temporary paint booths, but it's one of those things that we just kind of, I think, dismiss. I am guilty of it myself. Maybe you are as well. So what I did was, already knowing the hazard and then also getting support from my fellow watchers in the fact that there was a hazard, I figured it would be a great time to kind of change how we build this paint booth, and that's what I've done. The first thing I did was take the exhaust fan and move it from the inside of the paint booth to the outside of the paint booth. So now what we are doing is, rather than exhausting or sucking the air through the paint booth, what I'm going to do is pressurize the paint booth. And this is actually more similar to how the inflatable paint booths work. We're gonna pressurize the paint booth. And I did watch a couple YouTube videos on other people and how they were making their temporary paint booths. And one of the ones I came across was actually Finnegan's Garage. And actually, I was kind of surprised because I am basically doing the same thing that he did for when he was painting his C10 in his driveway. He took one of these canopies, opened it up, and basically did the same thing, but used a box fan rather than an air mover. But another thing too is, it's not always what we watch, but in the comments that we read. I know I'm kind of going down a rabbit trail, but hold with me here for a second. And in the comment section of Mike Finnegan's video, someone had suggested, for safety reasons, taking the fan from inside the paint booth, moving it outside, and rather than exhausting, to pressurize. And I thought about it and I was like, you know what, that makes a really lot of sense. And that's ultimately what I'm going to do. We're going to try pressurizing the booth. This way here, we force clean, fresh air in. The overspray gets forced out through the filters. I added a couple filters, one here and then two down on the front side along with my door. And it's basically the same principles. Rather than exhausting, we're pressurizing, and I still will have my filter box on the outside filtering the dirt and the air coming in. So ultimately, it still should remain clean. So that's what we're gonna do. That's what I'm gonna try. All in the name of safety. Mom, I hear you. My mom always used to tell me, oh, Michael, safety first, safety first. So that's what we're gonna do. And I'm gonna continue to challenge the build. I'll show you how I build the filter box, and then we'll pressurize it and see if it works. So now back on the outside of the booth, I am building a new filter box for the, I guess, can't really call it an exhaust fan at this point, the pressure fan. And I'm doing it essentially the same way that I did before. I'm just taking 3 filters, making a filter box around the exhaust fan, making sure that the airflow is headed in the right direction. And this way here, the air that gets sucked into the fan will be filtered and clean going into the paint booth, hopefully resulting in a clean paint job. And we will find out just how well this pressurizing idea is going to work here in just a minute. I'm going to finish taping this up and sealing this to the booth, and then I will turn on the fan and we'll see what happens. All right, so I went ahead and finished up taping everything together, taped it down to the floor nice and solid, got it sealed up as good as I can, and I think really as good as it needs to be. So one of the things that I did think about before we go plug this thing in is, because of the way that we are now pressurizing the booth, for one, I had to switch the way my door was operated. Rather than being an outswing door, it is now an inswing. So this way here, when the booth gets pressurized, it will push against the jamb and keep that sealed. And I think once I go to paint, I will actually just take a little bit of masking tape and kind of seal that up as best as I can. Another thing that I thought about was, with the force of the air coming out of the air mover, I'd put this diffuser in here along the table, basically just taped a piece of cardboard up to it. So this way here, the air will now flow kind of to the left and the right of the table, and then hopefully bounce off of this, and we'll get more of an upwards direction up over the hood. So, and I didn't really talk about it, but I had to block off the one portion, excuse me, of the air mover because of the way it's designed. I just had to block that off with some cardboard. So now we're at the point of actually seeing if the pressurization will work. 1, 2, 3 filters plus the door. I did add some lights to the booth. And as far as space, the hood is from a 2002 2500 HD, which is going to go on my wife's Suburban. And there is more than enough room to walk around and have space in this. This is 14 long, 12 feet wide, and I have about 4 feet, give or take, on either side of the hood. So plenty of room to walk around. And now to turn it on. Here we go. You can clearly see that it's pushing out the walls, which is good. It's not blowing the walls out, so that's a good thing. It's taped plenty strong. Putting these little X braces, I think, from corner to corner kind of help with that. And thankfully, my filter box isn't collapsing. One thing that I did do differently on this filter box was you can see that I changed my filters. Rather than using the fiberglass stranded ones, I went for the tighter paper style. So this way here, the air getting filtered before it passes into the booth is filtered to a smaller particulate size. And that's working good. Let's take a walk in the booth. I know you can't feel it, but I can feel it as I walk up to the door. We got plenty of air passing through the door. And on the side. So that seems to be working good. With the pressurized booth, it's keeping that nice and tight. And the air is doing exactly what I want it to be doing. We're getting a nice airflow kind of up in this area here, along the sides, and I think this will work out just fine. One added benefit of actually pressurizing the booth is now we are forcing all of the dirt and crap air out away from the hood rather than bringing it to it. With the exhaust strategy, we would actually be drawing air into and through the booth. Now we are pushing it out away from the booth, so we may get a pretty clean paint job for this thing. So I am looking forward to that. And in order to see just how well this paint booth is going to work, you're just going to have to subscribe, follow along, and wait for the next video to drop when I actually get involved in painting this hood. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the overall construction. I think it was a really smart move in changing the direction of the fan from exhausting to pressurizing. I think, for one, it will ultimately be safer, and two, we may get a better paint job just because now we are forcing the air in and away from the hood rather than bringing it to the hood. So I'm looking forward to it myself. I want to say thank you for watching. Now it's time for you to get out there and go challenge your build, and I will see you all in an upcoming video. Thanks for watching.